You're listening to the Real Resistance Podcast, brought to you by the First Amendment, protected by the Second. If you qualify as terminally ill, a definition that can change in a heartbeat because life is, after all, a terminal condition, Vermont has made it easier to obtain physician-assisted suicide drugs. Passed by the legislature and signed by Governor Scott, you can now use Zoom or any equivalent form of telemedicine to request drugs to end your life without ever meeting, in person, the doctor prescribing your death. Quote, "A physician shall not be subject to any civil or criminal liability or professional disciplinary action if the physician prescribes to a patient with a terminal condition medication to be self-administered for the purpose of hastening the patient's death, and the physician affirms by documenting in the patient's medical record that all of the following occurred, one of which was the patient made an oral request to the physician in the physician's physical presence or by telemedicine." End quote. There is a 15-day waiting period before the drugs get shipped, so you could, in theory, get a handgun sooner if you're itching to be on your way. Vermont has not yet passed a proposed 30-day waiting period for handguns hiding inside S-30, an act relating to prohibiting possession of firearms within hospital buildings. You are, of course, free to end your life by any other means, and I only bring up the handgun thing because people will say it's an awful thing to write. Last I checked, chemically executing people in prison is a horrible thing, but in Vermont, you can Zoom doctor death, and in about 2 weeks get the drugs necessary to ease your passing. There are no protests or requests to the governor for a stay or a call from a judge, and it's the same people on both sides of that issue. But if death by lethal injection is so bad, how about a Zoom call from death row with a doctor, and boom? Because, silly, Democrats like criminals more than you. They are also useful. Criminals, I mean. They commit crimes, and you can shoot them in public when they wear out their usefulness. But before that, they destabilize the ordered and predictable lives of a middle class progressives despise. Comfort, when it comes to dying, is acceptable, but living? There's no room in utopia for you to be comfortable. That sort of government can't afford it. And if they happen to have assisted suicide as an option, you might, one day, be diagnosed with a terminal illness by the same doctor who tried to kill you with a ventilator and remdesivir, and encouraged to end your suffering. Heck, why wait? You can go to Oregon right now and die sooner. They passed suicide tourism just this year. And not long from now, you'll be able to Zoom or Skype or FaceTime someone in Oregon and get the death meds without traveling. Quote, "The assisted suicide lobby wants to approve out-of-state assisted suicide requests via telehealth and to send the lethal drugs by mail to the out-of-state requester." End quote. If you're an Amazon Prime member, maybe you can get them in 2 days. And if you think for one moment this isn't going to happen and then become federal law either by an act of Congress or a Roe v. Wade-like SCOTUS decision, you've not been paying enough attention. They want it. And how hard has that been looking back for them to get what they want? Not very. There are a few bumps in the road here and there, a few delays, but it happens in the end. I mean, technically, we already have this. With the open borders and rampant opioid overdose deaths, it's government security policy assisted suicide. A few more words, and only slightly illegal. But imagine a government program run by eugenicists forever seeking ways to call the masses. It will not only be poorly regulated, but become an approved method of political assassination. Can you see the smiles on the faces of the Clinton crime family and the FBI, if and where you can separate them? No more accidents or messy suicides. From now on, anyone who knows anything and is a risk will become ill, get telemedicine, and kill themselves with dignity. And at this point, what difference does it make? You know I'm right, but who's prepared to step up and stop it before it gets that far? Better yet, who can?